And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
First line weather graphic showing 3 areas of pretty good IFR coverage up here over the north slope out to the Arctic coast. Another one here, Seward Peninsula, right on down along the southwest coast and extending to the Alaska Peninsula, covering St. Lawrence Island down to St. Matthew Island, and of course Nunivak Island. And another one with the storm system out here over the western Bering Sea and Aleutians, bringing a band of IFR into Adak and Atka. IFR for the southeast coast, and kind of a mixed situation here over the interior. And for the afternoon, got areas of VFR with some areas of marginal VFR for interior Alaska. Pretty much marginal for the Brooks Range out to the Arctic coast. Lingering IFR over the northern and eastern southeast coast. Areas of VFR and marginal VFR for the eastern Bering Sea. And still a pretty good zone of IFR out here with that system out over the Bering Sea extending down to Adak and Atka. And then for Thursday, got that area with that weakening front here bringing IFR across the Pribilof Islands down to the eastern Aleutians, and now lifting north of the remainder of the Aleutians into the Bering Sea, some IFR St. Lawrence Island down to the Yukon Delta coast and up to the Bering Strait. And back to some IFR here for the North Slope and Arctic coast with VFR and areas of marginal VFR over interior Alaska. Mostly VFR though, south central Alaska, Bristol Bay there, Kuskokwim Valley, Kodiak Island looking good on up into Prince William Sound. And IFR northern panhandle, mostly marginal elsewhere. And for the afternoon, we've got some VFR breaking out, especially over the southern southeast coast with lower conditions to the north. And again, areas of VFR with areas of marginal VFR from the Gulf of Alaska right on up to the Arctic coast. Mostly VFR, Kodiak Island, Cook Inlet into the Susitna Valley, as well as much of the southwest interior with the IFR here right off the southwest coast, over the central Bering Sea and along the south coast of a portion of the Alaska Peninsula, with marginal VFR for the Aleutians. And for the Brooks Range passes, Anaktuvik and Adigan tomorrow, marginal VFR, seems like a good forecast right now. And for Lake Clark and Merrill, VFR also for rainy, and then back to marginal for windy. Isabel looking marginal, as well as Mentasta. Optimistically going VFR for Tanita, as well as Portage, and another IFR day for Chilkoot and White. Freezing levels here, about 2,000 feet there over the southeast coast. Out to the west, a little bit warmer air coming up into the Aleutians that southerly flow ahead of the storm system a little bit farther to the west there. So we're looking at 6,000 feet out in that area. And from there, icing, considerable moderate rime icing here, pushing into the eastern Aleutians up to the Pribilof Islands, kind of extending back around into the western Aleutians. And along the southeast coast, looking for pretty much considerable moderate icing there from Dixon Entrance right on up into Lynn Canal Glacier Bay toward and back to the west there toward Yakutat. And the jet stream here bringing that moisture south to north flow here, 33,000 feet, 75 knots, and right over Yakutat, and a trough here over interior Alaska. And that's on the west side of that trough. We've got winds up to 100 knots there along the southwest coast, 125 knots blowing across the Trinity Islands, and westerlies at about 85 knots along and just south of the Aleutians. And at 9,000 feet here, we've got 35 to 50 knot winds here blowing into the east central Aleutians, becoming more northwest at about 35 for the Alaska Peninsula, east 35 there near the entrance of Prince William Sound, and south to north flow 35 to 50 knots there blowing into the southeast coast. And at 3,000 feet, 40 knot winds there along at least the coastline of the Panhandle there, east 45 knots right up and along the North Gulf coast, wrapping back around on the western side of that low in the Gulf there at about 35 for Kodiak Island. Arctic coast north slope, westerly winds 20 to as high as 40 knots there on the west side. And then with this weakening front pushing eastward here, only looking at 35 knot winds in advance of that, a little bit stronger back out toward the west. And for turbulence, look for considerable moderate for the area from, well, between Atka and Nikolsky there. And then the western Aleutians look pretty bumpy. And look for a light to isolated moderate turbulence there for the southeast coast, as well as the western Arctic coast areas.